Hi everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Jagadish, working for AmericanEagle.com as senior Sitecore dev. Today we are going to look at how to integrate Coveo push source with Sitecore XM Cloud and using the custom Next.js API. In this session, we will talk about why we needed this, how it works, and the benefits with this approach. Like what are the benefits we are going to see with this approach with the new XM Cloud architecture. So let's see the agenda. Yeah. So here's what we're going to cover over the next 30 to 40 minutes. A quick overview of how Sitecore and Coveo traditionally work together, like with the Sitecore Coveo for Sitecore connector, and the new challenges that comes with the Sitecore XM Cloud. Then I'm gonna introduce the solution that I did, the Next.js API. So we'll talk more about the Next.js API, like how to configure, what it does, and what are the steps it needed, like to configure and run to get the Coveo content. And I'll give a quick demo of that API, like in the action, like how we can push the content using API, like with multiple with all the Sitecore content items or a single item and all that stuff. And also we'll dig into the key features of that API, like what it actually enables us to do. And finally, Q&A. So, yep. Now let's rewind for a second and talk about the world before XM Cloud, like before even XM Cloud. So back then, if you were working with on-prem with Sitecore, maybe headless, or with MVC, integrating Coveo was like honestly pretty effortless. Like it was almost plug and play, right? Like we had that connector called Coveo for Sitecore module. Like you can just install it, and then it gives you control Coveo control panel in the Sitecore interface itself, admin panel, and so that basically did all those heavy lifting for us. So let's see what it actually that actually gave us with the on-prem stuff. Uh, well, it automatically created those Coveo sources like that were tied directly to the Sitecore index. So it handled all the index, like when you publish the content, it directly index Coveo web index, and if you did some changes in the master, it directly index that Coveo in the Coveo master index. So nothing major effort, right? You have the indexes created, you have all the configs, everything, like which template and what are the fields, everything has been configured, and you just publish to get that index rebuilt with master and web indexes, right? And if you ever needed a full rebuild, you could just do it in with the Sitecore control panel itself. So overall, it was kind of smooth experience. So the connector kind of did everything, and it was good. Now with XM Cloud, like let's fast forward to Sitecore XM Cloud. XM Cloud is fantastic for kind of so many reasons. Like it's kind of fully headless, cloud native, and SaaS products, which means you no longer have to worry about managing servers or maintaining infrastructure, everything. But because it's headless, a lot of the traditional stuff we used to do with the Sitecore goes away, right? We cannot have we cannot have your pipelines, .NET, C# pipelines, nothing, and then there's no traditional Sitecore web database. You can simply point Coveo it. And of course, the old Sitecore index system, since we don't have Coveo connector for Sitecore, we don't have that flexibility to have Coveo web index, Coveo master index, and all. So we lost that all this automatic indexing story. So and that's kind of a common pain point for the teams moving from on-prem to XM Cloud. So that moment where you realize oh, okay, we need a new way to get our content to Coveo. So what is the new way? That's using Coveo push API. So how does this Coveo push API works? Basically, manually we'll create a Coveo push source. Like basically you can call it a bucket where you can just add all your content in the push source. So yeah, first I created I started with creating manually Coveo push source, and then I built a custom API using Next.js. So why I prefer Next.js? Because anyway, XM Cloud we can have, Next.js app hosted in any of, hosting platforms, and that can talk to your XM Cloud instance. So that, that's the reason I just choose Next.js app, and, that pulls content directly from the Sitecore. I mean, depending on what I needed, I could use the layout service of, of the, Sitecore or the GraphQL. So that gave me kind of, to, full flexibility to get the exactly the data what I wanted. So then, my API, the one that I created, that took the structured content and pushed it straight to into the Coveo push source. From Coveo side, there are like just two things we needed. One is a push source, that's where the data goes, and an API key tied to the source. So you are authorized to push the content. Like we just need the API key to hit the Coveo endpoints. And that's it. This setup gives me complete control over what goes into the index, right? And how does it work? So creating Coveo push source. So when you actually open the Coveo, you can create a Coveo push source. Like you can list out a number of sources there. You can have Salesforce, you can have REST API. So I choose push API. So the first step was to create a Coveo push source. Navigate to Coveo admin panel, creates a push source, and then while doing the push source creation, you can actually get a API key. So this key acts as an authorization token that lets me securely use the Coveo push API endpoint. That's the push API endpoint that is actually responsible for pushing the content into the source. So once I had the push source and the API key, I was all set to start sending content from Sitecore to Coveo. How we can send, let's see. So let's get into what my API actually does. So there are like different things it can do. The first one is it can push all items by using the Sitecore sitemap service to pull a list of every page item. So from there, it process each one and send that each item data straight to the Coveo. And it can also push item by ID. So let's say when a content author publishes a page, I can instantly index just that page without touching anything else. So I just, I just call that API with a single item by providing a Sitecore item ID that just takes care of pushing all of its content to Coveo. So this API also filters by template. For example, if I want to index items that only based on kind of a page template, let's say article template and news template, and those kind of only the page templates I want to get them indexed. So we can, that this API will have the flexibility to tell what are the templates that you need to index. So it will exclude all those, standard values or all those data folders, everything. So we can just mention what needs to be indexed, what kind of page template can be indexed. So at the moment, it also respects a field called do not index field. The page template will have we can just have a field called do not index. And if it's a checkbox field, if you just check that do not index field checkbox, then, it will respect that field and the API will skip that item. Like, or even if it's remove it from the Coveo, if it's already there. Another cool thing is that, it selectively extracts fields and components. I can define exactly which renderings I want to scan, like a hero banner or article body, and choose which fields. Like, let's say a page item has 8 renderings. Now, I don't want all of those 8 renderings data to get sent to Coveo. So I can define, like, I don't want hero banner rendering content to be indexed. So I can just give hero banner the name of the rendering to the API, and that will take care of skipping that particular rendering. And even cool is like, I can provide what are the fields to be indexed. Let's say there are 2 fields, content and title. Let's say I don't want to index content field. You can just provide that field, and that will take care of skipping that field content to be indexed. And the one other thing is like it also a webhook ready. Let's say, we do have with the XM Cloud, it's everything is webhook ready, right? Let's say when a content editor change something and when we publish that content, as and when it reaches to Experience Edge, and once it reaches to Experience Edge, we can configure this API as an Experience Edge webhook so that it picks up that item ID and and it triggers that webhook with this API, and then you can just then that API itself, the webhook itself, takes care of indexing the updated content. And it also supports schedule jobs like uh, let's say if I'm hosting my Next.js app on Vercel, we can have Vercel cron jobs to schedule to have it scheduled, so that based on the schedule that we did, based on the times interval, it actually runs. I mean, basically it supports schedule jobs like whenever you want to run. So yeah, that's all these things that those are the features that API this gives you. So let's talk about API endpoints and usage. So I have exposed a single endpoint where it says, your host name slash API slash Coveo slash push. Just one endpoint that does it all. And here's the cool part, like, you can change its behavior using query parameters. For example, push all equals to true. That means it pushes all Sitecore items, like one by one, one by one. It pushes all the Sitecore items into the Coveo. And it also, I can just supply item ID, the grid of Sitecore item ID. And so, it pushes that specific particular item ID that you supplied. So with just a single API call, I can handle both full and the targeted indexing. It's kind of super flexible and easy to work with. Yeah, push all items. How does the push all items works? So when the API runs a full crawl, it goes through the entire Sitecore sitemap, processes each item, and extract only the fields and components that actually matters. Then it sends all of that structured content straight to the Coveo. So this approach is kind of perfect for things like initial index rebuild, or for nightly jobs that keep your content fresh and up to date. And then we have push specific item. So when the API runs for a single item, it pulls just that one item, resolves its fields, and pushes it straight to the Coveo. So I usually use this either manually or as part of the publishing workflow. So whenever the page is published, the system calls this endpoint with that particular item ID, and the page shows up in search immediately without waiting for a full reindex. And then webhook, yeah. So because of how flexible this API is, we can integrate in both the ways, like as a webhook on publishing. So we can add this API as a publish end webhook, or else experience edge webhook based on the need, so that as and when the publishing happened or the experience publishing reaches to experience edge, this API can be triggered via webhook, and that will push the item content to the Coveo. And yes, as I mentioned, schedule jobs. You can use virtual cron to reindex all the contents, daily or weekly based on the time we mentioned. And yeah, so till now I just spoke like what and all it can be done. Now let's see that in the action. Let me just get that up. Okay, let me know when you see my the VS Code. Can you guys see my VS Code screen? Can anyone confirm? Madhu or Balaji?
Yeah, we can see the screen, man.
Oh, the VS Code, the code, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Okay. So I mean, everything is hosted in the GitHub repo. I'll just post my GitHub repo URL in the chat. But yeah, so there is this this is the code where there are like it comes to pages. I mean, this is the Next.js app page router. So I have pages, API, Coveo, push. So you see, this is the index.cs. So this is the main file. So what it does is, like, let's start with this. I'll just explain this code and then show it in the action. So you have this API function. So it basically takes post method, and if it's not post, I'm just sending method not allowed, and it at least requires one, at least item ID or a webhook item name, or query parameter push all. So if you don't see anything in the request, it says bad request. So I pick the language based on the query. Based on the query that I get from the API request. If not, the default language is English. So if it's the item ID is there, that means it's the API is running only for single item ID. So I pick the item ID. If not, this is a push Coveo event webhook. So I pick the item ID. So yeah, it's all like this. So basically, let's say I'm passing only item ID like this. So if you see API Coveo push item ID, Let's say this is the item ID I'm giving. So what it does is, if the item ID is there, it basically fetch template name of that particular item ID, and it actually filters if template. So this is the place where list the page template names here. All the items based on these templates will be pushed to Coveo. So if template is not present, then item based on the template will not get pushed. So let's say this item ID is here. So if the item ID, if the template of this item ID is page, then only it will continue. Or else it will say, this item is not a page a template item that it provided. So once it satisfies this condition, so it goes and pick the layout data of that particular item ID we supplied, and delete the Coveo record if the item is set to not to index. So it checks for do not index field on that item if it's there, and then check if even though if this particular item is already in the Coveo, it goes and deletes that item. If not, this item is not included for index. So it passes all of these checks. Now, how does this get the content for the content of the item? So I got the layout data from the layout service, and then I go for get content item, and it checks for any placeholders, I mean, any components are on the particular item. And if it's there, pick all the renderings, and it collects the JSON values. And now it goes for all the page item content. It gets all the item content and joins it. And you see extract all field values from component. So this is kind of main, main function. It gets the renderings, exclude components, exclude fields. So I mentioned, right, let's in the previously, when I was showing that. So let's say you have two components, hero banner and then content block. So if I don't want my content block to get the content indexed, I can just mention it over here. Let's say I don't want my content block component to index. So this will give me, this will just, it will look for this content block, rendering. If it's there, it will simply skip. So that's one. And also exclude fields. So if I don't want any field to be indexed, so you just need to provide that field name over exclude field, and that will take care of excluding that content. So it calls extract all field values from site component, and it goes for it looks through all the placeholder keys, gets the content, and it looks for the component name, and if it looks for it checks this. This is the check where if it is present in the exclude components or not. If not, again it goes and calls the recursive collect JSON values, and it goes through all the fields here, and type of value is object or JSON value based on that. If it's object, again it will loop through, and it gets the href, it gets if it's source. So basically, this is the collect JSON values is the function that actually deals with all your kind of field types, and looks for excluded fields, and then push the content and gets all the content of that particular item. So once I get the content from here, I get the content and page item content plus the content. Once I get the content, so here you see the document ID, the host that you defined in the env, and the path of the item as a document ID. Title can be your title field of the item ID, and the content. So this is the content you have that will be pushed to data. So let's see, let me just open, let me get this here. So if I do platform.cloud,
Hey Jagadish, can you hear me?
yeah, yep,
I have a question. Like you have exclude fields, right? Like
right.
which template it does. Like if there is a couple of templates using title, like you want only particular template title needs to be excluded. Are you using the IDs over there, or it's field names you are using?
They are the field names. I mean, I didn't get the occurrence like, basically, I mean, I didn't think of, having field name same across two templates, but yeah, we can just have it based on the IDs as well. So, but yeah, for now, it just picks the field names.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah. So let's say if I create a new source here, add source. So push, and then maybe like SUG demo, I'll give. So create an API key. So this is the API key that we need to interact with the Coveo. So I get this create. Yeah, so we need this API key, and then so there is this env.local. So what I'm doing it env, there is the env. So Coveo API key. So this is where the Coveo API key I'll give, and Coveo push URL is already this. So I need couple of more, or I mean, I need couple of parameters. One is Coveo org ID, Coveo source ID. So I'll be able to get from here if I go to the SUG demo. So this will be the org ID. So Coveo org ID, and then Coveo source ID. This is the Coveo source ID. So yeah, that's all. So now this app is actually connected. App is actually talking to this Coveo source that we created. And I actually have this Next.js app talking to one of my Sitecore instance. So I can just show you that if I come here.
Jagdish, there is a question around how is the performance of this approach compared to out-of-the-box Sitecore search index population process?
This one, like, yeah, I mean, I did have a kind of one of the instance where I had like a huge content. So I set it as a batch wise Balaji. So
Okay.
yeah. So, but yeah, based on, I set it as a batch wise so that, once it, you can just limit to whatever the number of items you want. So I set it as a batch wise for one of it.
I'm not sure the name. K, did that answer your question? If you have, you can unmute yourself and ask directly.
Okay. So yeah, I mean that my Next.js app is actually talking to this instance. So let me copy this ID, and if I go to the Postman, I'll just get this item ID, right? And just say send. So it says message content push to Coveo, and then let's go back to our Coveo logs. We should see that that particular item is should coming in the logs. There you go. So it started the more page streaming. It could take a couple of minutes to get that document to Coveo. Yep, streaming is done, consuming. Content browser. Need some more time. Not yet.
Is the data in content browser going to be unstructured? That content field is just going to be all one blob?
Sorry, what was the question?
When you look at the item in the content browser in Coveo, is
Okay.
it going to be unstructured? So
I
it
mean,
doesn't recognize the fields,
yes, it's like basically all your content will be, let's say you have
values.
fields, right? So all those field values will be concatenated as a single string.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I wonder
So
if there's another way you could do it by actually helping Coveo recognize the fields and values, because that's how it did in the connector before.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So it that particular item got got pushed to Coveo. Now let's see, you see the hero banner, hello, and test link, right? So where is the hero banner? It went to demo page. If I go to the data, it has, if I go to presentation details. Yeah, I have these three renderings. Fetch example, it's just nothing, there's no data source, it's just a dummy rendering. But I have two, hero and rich text. So let's go to hero data source. It has the banner where it has two fields, title and content. So now in the content browser, we should be able to see title and content. Hero banner, hello. So hero banner, hello. And then you see the test link that is from the another rendering, text test link. And let's say I don't want content to be indexed. So the content field has to be given here. So excluded fields. So excluded fields. Let's say if I just provide content. And then let's rerun this again. And it will override with the newly added. And now the next time you won't see the whatever the content field value, hello. So let's duplicate this. Plus 425. Yep, it's like the newly one started adding content browser. Let's see it to update 425. Consuming and then index.
So Jagdish, I have one question. Help me understand, like when you're pulling this item, as per your code, would it be doing multiple API calls? In this case, like you showed two renderings, and as per the code, you're looping through each of these renderings and going and pulling the data sources of each one of them. So how does it internally work?
So I mean, no, right? It will be only single API call. Why? Where do you see that?
No, I'm like when you hit it from your Postman, you're hitting this API endpoint. But
Correct.
inside the API endpoint, you're going back to Sitecore and asking for all the different data, right?
Yeah,
That
exactly.
will be multiple different API calls, or in the sense, like when you ask for the page item itself, it's one call. And then if you're going back and saying like there is a hero banner and I need the data source for that item, is it like a recursive is what I'm trying to ask?
No, if let me show you this. Yeah, the item ID is coming from the query string, right? But then
Correct.
I'm only getting the layout service, fetch layout data, right? This is the layout service call to the Sitecore.
Okay, and after that, when you're pulling the data source individual items?
Yeah, so I can get content item. And anyway, I have the layout data. Since I got the layout data, I have the layout data in my hand and renderings I'm getting. And then once I got the renderings, if you see extract all field values, so placeholder keys, so it goes to each component, because once I get the layout data, I'll be able to have all my components along with data sources and all its field values, right? So it's only single call to the layout, and I'm able to get all of those fields and then just playing around with those fields and values to get added to my content.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll see content browser SUG demo. Yeah, you see that content field is now not, it's not there since I excluded that field in my API. So before it was hero banner and hello with the p tags. Now the hello is not there. That is nothing but my content field value. So like this, I can exclude my rendering as well. If I come here, presentation details, not this, demo page, details. So hero, let's say if I just exclude hero and hero here in the list of excluded components, index field. Yeah, exclude components. If I can just exclude hero, it will just exclude that rendering and get all the remaining data to be in the Coveo. And yeah, the other one is like push all equals to true. So if I do push all equals to true, yeah, it's pushing all my page item, all the page items which are of type page is getting pushed. So if I do it, I did push all right. So, but it's only looking for the page kind of templates. If the item template is of type page, then only it will push. And if I just see the logs now.
The other question I have is like how would these APIs be called from the Sitecore interface?
Right.
Like when you do index now or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, we can have experience edge webhook configured, right, Balaji? So what we can do is, let me show you. I think I have, yeah. So create webhook. These are like experience edge webhooks. You can just URI, label, enter post, header. I mean, this is like I did, but yeah, you can have experience edge webhook and when to publish. So that webhooks will be called, let's say, when you publish this particular item, that webhook will be, we can call, and then that webhook will in turn call this API with the payload of item ID, and it just triggers that indexing, right? So these are the webhooks. Yeah.
Same you would do for push all, like do a cron job or something like that, would call it.
I mean, push all I would just utilize only once. So that
see.
I mean, yeah, only once, so that it will have all my Sitecore content will be in the Coveo, and then I can set up as a experience edge webhook, so that as and when I just publish this, that webhook will trigger this API to push the content to the Coveo.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so I utilized experience edge webhook in that case, and then yeah, so it's getting all the content. Yeah, you see SUG demo has 27 items now, which are all these URIs, description and everything. And one other thing I wanted to show is like, I mean, at the moment, this report doesn't have any image to be pushed. So let's say, I mean, based on the need, we can just add a image field to be image source field to be shown to be added to the content, so that we can utilize that image in any of search results pages. So yeah, that is one thing, and this is available in my GitHub repo.
In similar way, you could do the media library items like PDFs.
Yeah, exactly. So you can extend that one. Yeah, so I have this code available in my repo, and then you can extend like based on the need. But yeah, this is kind of a starting point. So this way I was able to exclude renderings, I was able to exclude fields, and then configured it as a webhook ready, so that right now I'm using this. So whenever publishing happens, it goes and get the updated content in Coveo. So everything is working. Yeah, it's kind of pretty much this much. That's all. So you only have to configure your Coveo push Coveo org source ID API key, and there are these two important files. And configurations, list of configurations, clone the repo, npm install, run start connected.
Did you think about how to do any facets or filters?
That will be from I mean, facets filters is different, right? You can have your fields added based on field. I mean, that facet filter, and you can just use them as from the Coveo headless library, right? Not here.
Mark, I think
Put it in
like
code,
in
you'd
this,
create another field and then a mapping.
yeah, I would think like adding that part of the push API, like in the API endpoint, could add a separate
Yeah.
field. I was just thinking through the computed fields, and if you're doing
Hmm.
facets or anything, how would you do it? And
Yeah,
like when you're extracting the
facets
data,
and
you
computed
can.
fields might be similar.
Only thing I wish was different is rather doing this as a text file type. If you can think about doing it as a web page, then you
I
will
mean,
get all the
we can
benefits.
change the type as HTML as well, Balaji. Like the type could change, right? If you see, instead of text, there is a like setting we can just
No, it's
type.
just not the type. Like
Yeah.
Mark was asking the question around if the rendered HTML content is there, then when you click on the preview and other things, not like concatenating all the text into one JSON.
Got it. Oh, yeah.
That will be a good addition if you can.
Yep. Yeah. I'll make sure to do that. Yeah.
Once you click on the preview, and a lot of other benefits you will get if you do that.
Exactly. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. I think I can work on it.
It's altogether a different approach, and it's pretty much close to what Sitecore is or Coveo was doing with the Sitecore out of the box plugin. They do the same push API, but that's pretty good. Thank you for sharing.